A millionaire tax attorney destroys his entire empire with 5 deadly words that expose a $3.2 million criminal conspiracy. After Marcus Richardson publicly humiliates Judge Judy on live television, calling her math embarrassingly wrong, she unleashes an investigation that uncovers the most shocking tax fraud scheme in legal history. This devastating takedown will leave you speechless and prove that karma hits harder than a federal prison sentence. Before we dive into this incredible case, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I love seeing where my viewers are around the world. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you never miss more unbelievable cases like this one. Now sit back, relax, and enjoy the video. It was 2:47 p.m. when the courtroom exploded into chaos. Marcus Richardson, dressed in his $4,000 Armani suit, stood behind the plaintiff's table with a kind of arrogant smirk that screams untouchable. His Rolex gleamed under the studio lights as he pointed directly at Judge Judy's whiteboard calculation, his voice dripping with condescension. "Your Honor, with all due respect, even a first-year community college student could see that your basic arithmetic is completely wrong." The audience gasped in unison. Camera operators frantically adjusted their shots. But Judge Judy didn't flinch. She just stared at him with those legendary eyes that have destroyed bigger men than him. For 3 weeks, Richardson had been representing a defendant in what should have been a simple small claims case. A $12,000 dispute over unpaid contractor fees. Child's play for a man who boasted about his Harvard law degree and his elite Manhattan tax practice that catered to millionaires. But here he was in daytime television court, because his ego demanded he prove himself right against America's most beloved TV judge. What he didn't know was that his 5 words of arrogance would trigger an avalanche that would bury his entire criminal empire. Richardson stepped closer to Judge Judy's bench, his voice rising with theatrical authority. "Your calculation shows the defendant owes $12,000 plus interest, which you computed as $1,200 over 6 months. But 10% annual interest on $12,000 is $1,200 per year, not per 6 months. The correct amount is $600. He turned to the cameras with a victorious smile. "Perhaps Your Honor should stick to family disputes and leave the real math to those of us with actual legal training." The courtroom fell into stunned silence. Judge Judy's pen stopped moving. Her breathing slowed. Then she did something that chilled everyone to the bone. She smiled. "Counselor Richardson," Judge Judy said, her voice calm as winter ice, "you just made the biggest mistake of your legal career. And trust me, I know exactly what your career looks like." Richardson's confident smirk faltered for just a microsecond before returning full force. "I'm simply correcting a mathematical error, Your Honor. Nothing personal." Judge Judy leaned forward, her eyes never leaving his. "Oh, this is about to get very personal. Because while you're busy correcting my math, I'm about to correct your entire life." The audience shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Richardson's client tugged at his sleeve, whispering urgently, but the attorney waved him away. He had no idea that Judge Judy had already spotted something in his case filings that didn't add up. Something about his fee structure, his tax identification numbers, and the way he'd structured his client's payment plan. Details that would make any experienced judge suspicious. But Richardson was too intoxicated by his own superiority to notice that he'd just painted a target on his back. "Mr. Richardson," Judge Judy continued, her voice now carrying the weight of inevitable doom, "since you're so concerned about accurate calculations, let's talk about your calculations. Specifically, the ones you've been hiding from the IRS for the past 8 years. Richardson's face went white. The color drained so fast it looked like someone had pulled a plug. His mouth opened, but no sound came out. Judge Judy's smile widened. "Did you really think you could walk into my courtroom, humiliate me on television, and I wouldn't take a very close look at exactly who you are?" The defendant at Richardson's table started sweating. The plaintiff looked confused. The audience held their collective breath. Richardson finally found his voice, though it came out as a croak. "I don't know what you're implying, but I resent any suggestion that—" Judge Judy cut him off with a raised hand. "Save it for the federal investigators, counselor." because that's exactly who you're going to be talking to very, very soon. If you think you know where this story is going, think again. What Judge Judy discovered about Marcus Richardson makes Bernie Madoff look like a small-time pickpocket. Hit that like button if you're ready to watch a Harvard-educated attorney's world crumble in real time. And tell me in the comments, have you ever seen someone's arrogance write a check their freedom couldn't cash? Because this tax attorney just learned that when you try to embarrass Judge Judy, she doesn't just embarrass you back. She destroys you completely. By 6:15 p.m. that evening, something had fundamentally shifted in Judge Judy's private chambers. She didn't pace. She didn't rant to her producers about Richardson's disrespect. She sat in complete, terrifying silence at her mahogany desk, staring at a computer screen that displayed information most people would never see. Around her, longtime staff members who had witnessed thousands of courtroom battles sat frozen, waiting for the legendary explosion that never came. Instead, Judge Judy opened a secure government database that very few civilians have access to, her fingers moving across the keyboard with surgical precision. What Richardson didn't know, what his Harvard-trained arrogance had blinded him to, was that Judge Judy Scheindlin wasn't just a television personality. Before her TV career, she had spent 15 years as a family court judge in Manhattan, handling cases that required deep investigation into financial fraud, hidden assets, and tax evasion schemes. She had developed relationships with federal investigators that most people couldn't even imagine. And when someone challenged her competence this publicly, this arrogantly, she didn't just get mad. She got methodical. Judge Judy pulled up Richardson's bar registration, his business filings, and his recent case history with a kind of focused intensity that made seasoned attorneys nervous. She cross-referenced his client list with IRS audit records, matched his fee structures against reported income, and traced his professional associations through databases that required federal clearance to access. What she found in those first 20 minutes of digging made her blood run cold. Richardson wasn't just an arrogant attorney. He was a criminal who had been hiding in plain sight for nearly a decade. The red flags were everywhere once you knew how to look. Richardson's law firm, which claimed to handle high-net-worth tax optimization, had processed over $15 million in client payments over the past 3 years, but his reported income to the IRS was suspiciously low. His fee structure was bizarre. He charged clients massive upfront payments that somehow never appeared in his tax filings. Most damning of all, 7 of his clients had been audited by the IRS in the past 2 years, and every single audit had uncovered the same pattern. Richardson had advised them to take deductions that were completely fictional. Judge Judy reached for her secure phone, the red one that connected directly to federal law enforcement. Her voice was steady, professional, and absolutely terrifying in its calm certainty. "This is Judge Judy Scheindlin. I need to speak with Deputy Director Sarah Chun at IRS Criminal Investigation immediately. Priority 1. I have a tax attorney who just publicly challenged my mathematical competence while actively running what appears to be a multi-million-dollar fraud operation." The silence on the other end lasted exactly 3 seconds before Chen's voice came through, sharp and focused. "Judge Scheindlin, what do you have?" What happened next would have made Richardson collapse if he had known. Judge Judy didn't just file a complaint or suggest an investigation. She provided Chun with a complete forensic analysis of Richardson's operation that was so detailed, so comprehensive, that federal investigators later said it was better than most work their own financial crimes unit produced. She had identified 13 specific clients who appeared to be victims of fraud, located for shell companies Richardson used to hide income, and traced money flows that pointed directly to offshore accounts in the Cayman Islands. But the most devastating evidence was something Richardson had stupidly provided himself. In his client files, which he had submitted as evidence in previous court cases, Richardson had documented his own criminal methodology. He kept meticulous records of how he structured fake deductions, how he coached clients to lie to the IRS, and how he moved money through shell companies to avoid detection. It was like finding a serial killer's diary that detailed every murder. Richardson's compulsive need to document his own brilliance had created a federal prosecutor's dream case. Chun listened in stunned silence as Judge Judy laid out 8 years of systematic tax fraud that had cost the federal government over $3.2 million in lost revenue. Judge Scheindlin finally said, "How did you compile this analysis so quickly?" Judge Judy's response was pure ice. "When someone insults my intelligence on national television, I make it my business to understand exactly who they are. And Mr. Richardson just gave me every reason to look very, very closely at his business practices." By midnight, a full federal task force had been assembled. IRS Criminal Investigation, FBI Financial Crimes Division, and the U.S. Attorney's Office for the Southern District of New York were coordinating what would become one of the largest tax fraud prosecutions of the decade. Richardson had no idea that his 5 words of arrogance had just triggered a federal investigation that would consume the next 18 months of his life and ultimately destroy everything he had built through lies and theft. The most chilling part? Judge Judy had only been looking for 20 minutes when she found enough evidence to end Richardson's career forever. What the federal task force would uncover over the next 6 months would prove that Richardson's courtroom humiliation was nothing compared to the justice that was about to rain down on him like a biblical flood. Her name was Elena Vasquez, and she was standing in the rain outside the federal courthouse at 7:30 a.m., clutching a manila envelope that contained the death certificate of her American dream. Inside those wet, crumpled papers was the foreclosure notice for Casa Elena, the family restaurant she had built from nothing over 12 years of 18-hour days. The same restaurant that Marcus Richardson had promised to save with his brilliant tax strategy that would legally eliminate her tax burden forever. Instead, his genius plan had triggered an IRS audit that destroyed everything she had worked for, leaving her with a $340,000 tax bill that didn't exist before Richardson touched her books. Elena wasn't supposed to be a victim. She was supposed to be a success story. A single mother who immigrated from Guatemala with $47 in her pocket and a dream of owning her own business. She had saved every penny for 7 years, worked 3 jobs simultaneously, and finally opened Casa Elena in 2019. The restaurant became the heart of her community, a place where families celebrated quinceañeras, where local workers grabbed lunch, where Elena's own daughter Isabella did homework at table 6 every day after school. When the pandemic hit and nearly destroyed her business, Elena fought back, adapted, survived. But she couldn't survive Marcus Richardson. Richardson had promised Elena that his advanced tax optimization strategies would save her $80,000 annually in taxes. He charged her a $25,000 upfront fee, money she borrowed against the restaurant, and immediately restructured her business through a maze of shell companies and fake charitable deductions. On paper, it looked brilliant. Casa Elena was suddenly donating $150,000 annually to children's charities, claiming massive equipment depreciation on assets she didn't own, and reporting business losses while clearly making a profit. Richardson assured Elena this was completely legal, and that the IRS would never question these legitimate business strategies. But when the IRS auditors arrived 18 months later, they found a financial house of cards that collapsed within hours. Every single deduction Richardson had created was fraudulent. The children's charities didn't exist. The equipment depreciation was based on fabricated purchase records. The shell companies were paper entities designed to hide income, not protect it. Elena owed not just the back taxes Richardson had saved her, but massive penalties and interest that brought her total debt to nearly $500,000. The restaurant that had survived a pandemic couldn't survive Marcus Richardson's brilliant legal mind. The most heartbreaking part wasn't just the money Elena lost. It was watching her daughter Isabella, now 14, pack up her homework from table 6 for the last time. The girl who had dreamed of inheriting the family business was instead helping her mother box up 12 years of memories before the bank seized everything. Elena had trusted Richardson because he was Harvard educated, because he wore expensive suits, because he spoke with the confidence of someone who knew the law. She never imagined that a respected attorney would deliberately destroy immigrant families for profit. That morning outside the courthouse, Elena wasn't looking for revenge. She was looking for answers. How had the system failed her so completely? How had a man with such prestigious credentials been allowed to prey on hardworking families like hers? And most importantly, how many other Elenas were out there, destroyed by Richardson's optimization strategies, while he bought million-dollar homes with their stolen dreams? Elena didn't know it yet, but she was about to become the face of the biggest tax fraud prosecution in federal court history. Her courage to speak out would expose Richardson's true victim count: 43 families, $8.2 million in fraudulent schemes, and a decade of systematic targeting of immigrant business owners who trusted him with their futures. At exactly 6 a.m. on Thursday morning, Judge Judy walked into her chambers carrying a sealed manila folder that would destroy Marcus Richardson's life forever. The folder was marked IRS Criminal Referral, Priority 1 in bold red letters, and inside were 47 pages of evidence, so damning that federal prosecutors later called it the most comprehensive financial crime documentation they had ever received from a civilian. Judge Judy sat at her desk, looked directly into the security camera that recorded everything in her chambers, and slowly opened the folder that contained 8 years of systematic theft. The evidence was breathtaking in its scope and Richardson's stupidity. Bank records showed a pattern of money laundering that was so obvious it looked like a textbook example of what not to do. Judge Judy read aloud from the first document: March 15, 2021. Wire transfer from Richardson Tax Consulting LLC to Cayman Islands Development Trust, $450,000. Memo line: legal fee restructuring. She paused, her voice dripping with contempt. Legal fee restructuring to an offshore account 3 days after filing fraudulent tax returns for 6 clients. But the real bombshell came on page 12. Richardson had been so confident in his own brilliance that he had created a detailed spreadsheet tracking his criminal profits. The file was titled Client Optimization Results, and it was essentially a scoreboard of how much money he had stolen from each family. Elena Vasquez, $340,000 in fake deductions, $25,000 in fees. The Morales Family Bakery, $280,000 in fraudulent write-offs, $30,000 in upfront payments. 43 families, each entry showing how Richardson had systematically destroyed their lives while enriching himself. The most shocking evidence was a series of recorded phone calls that Richardson had made to his accountant, discussing how to hide his criminal profits from the IRS. In one recording, Richardson's voice was crystal clear: "These immigrant families are perfect marks. They don't understand the tax code, they're afraid of the government, and they'll never report me because they think I'm protecting them. It's like taking candy from babies, except the candy is worth millions." Judge Judy's hands trembled as she read the transcript. This wasn't just tax fraud. This was predatory targeting of vulnerable families. Judge Judy picked up her phone and called Deputy Director Chun directly. "I'm sending you something that will make your prosecutors weep with joy." Richardson didn't just commit tax fraud. He documented it, celebrated it, and targeted the most vulnerable families in America while doing it. Chen's response was immediate. "Judge Scheindlin, we're executing search warrants in 2 hours. This evidence is so solid we could convict him with a jury of his own clients." Within minutes, the story exploded across social media. Someone had leaked Judge Judy's evidence folder, and the screenshots of Richardson's client optimization results spreadsheet went viral instantly. #TaxAttorneyScam trended worldwide as millions of people saw exactly how a Harvard-educated lawyer had systematically preyed on immigrant families. The caption that broke the internet read, "He mocked Judge Judy's math while stealing millions from families who trusted him." The legal community erupted in outrage, but one voice cut through all the noise. Elena Vasquez, speaking through tears on live television, said, "Judge Judy's numbers saved us all. His numbers destroyed our lives." At 5:47 a.m. on Friday morning, while Richardson was still sleeping in his $3.2 million Manhattan penthouse, 12 black SUVs surrounded his building. Inside, federal agents from 3 different agencies moved with military precision, armed with search warrants that gave them access to everything Richardson owned. His luxury apartment, his law offices, his offshore bank accounts, even his personal computers. Nothing was off limits. Richardson woke up to the sound of his door being smashed open and federal agents shouting his name. The arrest footage went viral within minutes because Judge Judy had arranged for it to be live-streamed. America watched in real time as Marcus Richardson, the arrogant attorney who had mocked a beloved TV judge, was dragged out of his penthouse in handcuffs and a bathrobe. His face was pale with terror, his Harvard confidence completely shattered. The caption that broke the internet read, "From mocking Judge Judy's math to federal prison in 72 hours." But Richardson's arrest was just the beginning of a systematic collapse that destroyed everything he had built on lies. Within 6 hours, his law firm partners had expelled him and hired criminal defense attorneys. His clients began filing malpractice lawsuits demanding immediate audits of their tax filings. The New York State Bar Association suspended his license pending criminal conviction. Most devastatingly, the federal investigation had uncovered evidence that Richardson's crimes extended far beyond tax fraud into money laundering, wire fraud, and racketeering. The domino effect was swift and merciless. Richardson's wife filed for divorce and froze all joint assets. His luxury cars were repossessed. His country club membership was revoked. His children's private school expelled them when tuition payments bounced. The man who had lived like royalty on stolen money was suddenly broke, friendless, and facing 60 years in federal prison. If you think this story ends with Richardson's arrest, you're completely wrong. What happens next will restore your faith that justice actually exists in America. Hit that subscribe button because Judge Judy's final move against Richardson is so perfectly calculated, so beautifully devastating, that it will give you chills. Drop a comment telling me, what would you say to someone who targeted innocent families and then got completely destroyed by karma? 8 months later, in federal court, Southern District of New York, Marcus Richardson sat in an orange jumpsuit as Judge Patricia Williams read his crimes aloud. Tax evasion, $3.2 million. Client fraud, $8.2 million. 43 families destroyed by his predatory schemes. But then came the moment that broke the internet forever. Judge Judy walked into the federal courtroom as a witness for the prosecution. She wasn't there to gloat or seek revenge. She was there to speak for every family Richardson had destroyed. Standing at the witness stand, Judge Judy looked directly at Richardson and said, "You mocked my math on national television while systematically stealing from immigrant families who trusted you with their dreams. Your arithmetic was perfect when it came to calculating how much you could steal." Elena Vasquez was given the final word. Through tears, she addressed Richardson directly. "You told me I was lucky to have such a smart lawyer. But Judge Judy was the smart one. Her math saved 43 families from your lies." Richardson stared at the floor, unable to meet her eyes. Federal Judge Williams delivered the sentence that ended Richardson's life as he knew it. 18 years federal prison, $12.8 million in restitution, permanent disbarment, and lifetime ban from tax preparation. As Richardson was led away in shackles, Judge Judy stood in the gallery. Their eyes met one final time. She didn't smile or celebrate. She simply mouthed 3 words that the cameras caught perfectly. "My math wins." Today, Casa Elena is not just open, it's thriving. Elena Vasquez now owns 3 restaurants across Manhattan, all paid for with Richardson's seized assets and restitution money. Behind the register of the original location hangs a framed photo of Judge Judy with a handwritten note. To Elena, sometimes the best math is simple honesty. Keep building dreams. Every day, dozens of customers stop to read that note, and every day, Elena tells them the story of how a TV judge's arithmetic saved her American dream. Richardson's downfall created something beautiful, the largest victim restitution fund in tax fraud history. All 43 families received full compensation plus damages. The Morales Bakery reopened and now employs 12 people. The Chun family's auto repair shop expanded to 2 locations. Isabella Vasquez, Elena's daughter, just started her freshman year at Harvard Law School on a scholarship funded by Richardson's seized penthouse. She wants to become a prosecutor specializing in financial crimes. "I want to protect families like mine," she told Judge Judy at her graduation party. The legal system itself changed because of Richardson's case. Congress passed the Immigrant Business Protection Act, requiring tax attorneys to carry malpractice insurance, specifically covering fraud victims. Law schools now teach mandatory courses on predatory targeting prevention. The New York State Bar created a victim compensation fund for attorney fraud cases. Judge Judy personally testified before Congress, saying, "Sometimes the most important math is counting the families we protect." But perhaps the most powerful legacy happened just last week. Judge Judy received a handwritten letter from a young law student in Chicago. It read, "Dear Judge Judy, I saw your case against Richardson on the news. I'm a first-generation immigrant studying law, and I want to dedicate my career to protecting families like Elena's. Your math didn't just solve a case, it inspired a calling. Thank you for showing us that justice isn't just about being right. It's about protecting people who can't protect themselves." Judge Judy kept that letter on her desk, right next to a photo of Elena cutting the ribbon at her third restaurant. Sometimes the most beautiful mathematics isn't about complex equations or Harvard formulas. Sometimes it's as simple as this: steal from innocent families, lose everything. Mock the truth, face justice. Prey on the vulnerable, get destroyed completely. If this story proves that karma is real, that justice eventually wins, and that Judge Judy is an absolute legend who protects the people that matter most, please like this video and subscribe for more stories where good defeats evil. Leave a comment below sharing your own experience with someone whose arrogance led to their downfall, because every bully deserves to be exposed and every victim deserves to be heard. We told Richardson's destruction, but more importantly, we celebrated Elena's triumph. Justice served, dreams restored, case closed forever.